Mr. Richard Hass, President CFR, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is a pleasure to be back at the Council on Foreign Relations. At a time when we are facing several challenges of a truly global nature, the Council's mission of promoting better understanding between the United States and the rest of the world is more relevant than ever. Ladies and gentlemen, I am sure that the recent developments in Afghanistan are on everyone's mind, and I will share Pakistan's perspective on them in due course. But I want to begin with how Pakistan envisions the future of its relationships with the United States. I do not need to educate this learned audience on the cyclical nature and the historic ups and downs of the Pakistan-US relationship. Our engagement has often been narrowly framed, dictated either by short-term security interests or the imperative to deal with a common challenge. We want to break out of this pattern. After the horrific September 11 terrorist attacks, Pakistan and the United States came together to decimate Al-Qaeda's core leadership and architecture. Our cooperation produced results, leading President Biden to conclude earlier this year that the United States had achieved its core objective in Afghanistan. Now that the US military mission in Afghanistan is over, we want to take our relationship beyond counterterrorism and Afghanistan, which of course would remain priorities. For Pakistan, the United States remains an important partner. The United States is still our largest export market and a major source of foreign remittances. There is cultural affinity between the United States and Pakistan, which is one of the largest English-speaking countries in the world. Talented young Pakistanis continue to gravitate towards American college campuses and Silicon Valley incubators. We have a large and politically engaged Pakistani-American community that is a bridge between our two countries. In short, we have all the ingredients in place to build a more substantive and a broad-based relationship that is anchored in trade, investment, and people-to-people linkages. As Pakistan shifts its focus towards geoeconomics, we want to leverage our connectivity infrastructure, including the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, to enhance regional trade and economic integration. We see the United States as an important partner in this regard. Sitting at the crossroads of South and Central Asia, Pakistan is a market of over 220 million people with a growing middle class. Pakistan's young but exciting startup tech culture showcases our untapped investment potential. US companies like ExxonMobil have a long history of working in Pakistan. With the government's climate-friendly energy policies that are now tremendous, they offer tremendous opportunities for US companies that specialize in renewable and clean energy. An economically strong Pakistan can be an anchor for stability in a region that has suffered through 40 years of war in Afghanistan. Pakistan can work with the United States through the Development Finance Corporation to generate economic activity along the Pakistan-Afghanistan border. This could in turn help the Afghan people rebuild their war-ravaged country. The Pakistan-US-Uzbekistan-Afghanistan quadrilateral could be similarly leveraged to support Afghanistan's post-war reconstruction. Ladies and gentlemen, the government of Prime Minister Imran Khan was elected on a promise of delivering jobs, growth, and prosperity to the people of Pakistan. We knew that achieving such an ambitious domestic agenda would be impossible without peace on our borders. Accordingly, Prime Minister Imran Khan offered that he would take 2 steps towards peace if India takes 1. Our message was simple. Pakistan and India should be fighting poverty instead of each other. Unfortunately, India not only spurned our overtures for peace, but took actions in occupied Jammu and Kashmir that have pushed South Asia into a blind alley. Prime Minister Khan had come to the UN 2 years ago and warned that India's illegal and unilateral actions in the disputed territory of Jammu and Kashmir would not silence the Kashmiri people's cry for self-determination, no matter what level of violence and suppression India unleashes against the Kashmiris. This has proved to be true. Earlier this month, the death of Kashmiri leader Sayyid Ali Shah Gilani illustrated the cynical manner in which Indian occupation is being perpetuated. India was so frightened of the moral authority wielded by the 91-year-old freedom fighter who had spent the last decade of his life under house arrest that it did not even let Mr. Gilani's family bury him as per his wishes. This was disgraceful, to say the least. Pakistan remains committed to finding a peaceful solution to the Jammu and Kashmir dispute, which is the main obstacle to lasting peace and stability in the region. It is up to India to break the impasse and create conditions for the resumption of meaningful dialogue with Pakistan. But seeing the right-wing religious frenzy that seems to have India in its grip under Prime Minister Modi, we are not holding our breath. We do hope, though, that the international community would not sacrifice the principles of freedom and self-determination on the altar of political expediency and the exigencies of great power competition when it comes to helping the long-suffering people of Kashmir. Ladies and gentlemen, the stunning developments in Afghanistan have created a new reality and reset the regional landscape. No one could have expected that the Ghani government would fall so quickly. Once President Biden announced his decision to withdraw all US troops from Afghanistan, Pakistan kept calling for more vigorous international diplomacy in support of an inclusive political settlement in Afghanistan. We warned that if we do not achieve such an outcome, more instability, even civil war, would ensue. Pakistan also joined the United States, Russia, and China in the extended troika to explicitly convey our opposition to any government imposed by force in Afghanistan. We urged both the Ghani government and the Taliban to show flexibility. While the Taliban were expanding their territory under their control, Mr. Ghani's government was busy inciting hatred against Pakistan on social media. Unfortunately, successive Afghan governments found it easier to play to the international gallery to blame Pakistan for every problem in Afghanistan rather than looking at the corruption and rot within. In the end, Mr. Ghani and his cohorts simply deserted the Afghan people. The expensively trained and equipped Afghan security forces were too demoralized to fight any longer for a corrupt, kleptocratic leadership. Mr. Ghani's final act was emblematic of how he had governed. He left Afghanistan to anarchy when an orderly transition had almost been negotiated. The speed of Ghani regime's collapse proved that President Biden had made the right call. As both he and Prime Minister Imran Khan have pointed out, continuing the war in Afghanistan would not have changed the outcome.